Global issues that concern schools and society. The world has become a global village. We have become a citizen of a global community. What takes place in one part of the globe, no matter how far, affects us. It is a small world after all, so goes the song. So in this discussion, we will discuss or we will tackle about global issues that affect schools and us. It is hoped that we are able to propose solutions to social problems which have become a current global issue. Okay, here we go. Here's how the concerns stack up, and for the record, the survey was offered in 14 languages, including all official languages of the United Nations. So first, we have climate change or destruction of nature, 48.8%. Second, large-scale conflict or wars, 38.9%. Third, inequality or income discrimination, 30.8%. 4. Poverty, 29.2%. 5. Religious conflicts, we have 23.9%. Number 6, government and accountability and transparency or corruption, 22.7%. 7. Food and water security, we have 18.2%. 8. Lack of education, 15.2%. 9. Safety or security or well-being, we have 14.1%. And lastly, 10. Lack of economic opportunity and employment, we have 12.1%. Among all the good in the world and all the progress being made in global issues, there is still much more to be done. Given the overwhelming disasters that nations, including the US, have been or still are going through, it is important to be aware of the most pressing global issues. So, according to Chloe Turner, there are top 10 global issues. Okay, so first, we have climate change. The global temperature are rising and are estimated to increase from 2.6 degrees Celsius to 4.8 degrees Celsius by 2100. This would cause more severe weather, crises with food and resources, and the spread of diseases. The reduction of greenhouse emissions and the spreading of education and the importance of going green can help make a big difference. Lobbying government and discussing policies to reduce carbon dioxide emissions and encouraging the reforestation is an effective way of making a progress with climate change. So next we have pollution. Pollution is one of the most difficult global issues to combat, as the umbrella term refers to ocean litter, pesticides and fertilizers, air, light, and noise pollution. Clean water is essential for humans and animals, but more than 1 million people don't have access to clean water due to pollution from the toxic substances. Sewage or industrial waste. It is one of the utmost important that people all over the world begin working to minimize the various types of pollution in order to better the health of the planet and all those living on it. Number 3, we have violence. Violence can be found in the social, cultural, and economic aspects of the world. Whether it is conflict that has broken out in a city, hatred targeted at a certain group of people, or sexual harassment occurring on the street, Violence is a preventable problem that has been an issue for longer than necessary. With continued work on behalf of the governments of all nations, as well as the individual citizens, the issue can be addressed and reduced. Okay, number 4, we have security and well-being. The UN is a perfect example of preventing the lack of security and well-being that is a serious global issue. Through its effort with regional organizations and representatives that are skilled in security, the UN is working toward increasing well-being people throughout the world. 5, we have lack of education. More than 72 million children throughout the globe that are of the age to be in primary education are not enrolled in school. This can be attributed to inequality and marginalization as well as poverty. Fortunately, there are many organizations that work directly with the issue of education in providing the proper tools and resources to aid schools. Okay, so number 6, we have unemployment. Without the necessary education and skills for employment, many people, particularly 15 to 24 years old, struggle to find jobs and create a proper living for themselves and their families. This leads to a lack of necessary resources such as enough food, clothing, transportation, and proper living conditions. Fortunately, there are organizations throughout the world teaching people in need the skills for jobs and interviewing, helping to lift people from the various cycle of poverty. Okay, number 7, we have government corruption. So corruption is a major cause of poverty, and considering how it affects the poor the most, ending political and economic development, democracy, and more. Corruption can be detrimental to the safety and well-being of citizens living within the corrupted vicinity, and can cause an increase in violence and physical threats without as much regulating in the government. So number 8, we have malnourishment and hunger. Currently, there are 795 million people who do not have enough to eat. Long-term success to ending world hunger start with ending poverty. With fighting poverty through proper training for employment, education, and the teaching of the cooking and gardening skills, people who are suffering will be more likely to get jobs, earn enough money to buy food, and even learn how to make their own food to save money. Okay, so number 9, we have substance abuse. The United Nations reports that by the beginning of the 21st century, an estimated 185 million people over the age of 15 are consuming drugs globally. The drugs most commonly used are marijuana, cocaine, alcohol, amphetamine stimulants, opiates, and volatile solvents. Different classes of people, both poor and rich, partake in substance abuse, and it is a persistent issue throughout the world. Petitions and projects are in progress to end the global issue of the substance abuse. And lastly, the terrorism, number 10. So terrorism is an issue throughout the world that causes fear and insecurity, violence, and death. Across the globe, terrorists attack innocent people, often without warning. This makes civilians feel defenseless in their everyday lives. Making national security a higher priority is a key in combating terrorism, as well as promoting justice in wrongdoings to illustrate the enforcement of the law and the serious punishment for the terror crimes. Okay. So with so many current global issues that require immediate attention, it is easy to get discouraged. However, the amount of progress that organizations have made in combating these problems is admirable, and the world will continue to improve in the years to come. By staying active in current events and standing up for the health and safety of all humans, everyone is able to make a difference in changing the fate of our world. The 17 Sustainable Development Goals for the period 2015 to 2030. So first we have end poverty in all its forms everywhere. End extreme poverty in all forms by 2030. Yes, it is an ambitious goal, but we believe it can be done. In 2000, the world committed to cutting the number of people living in extreme poverty by half in 15 years, and we met this goal. However, more than 800 million people around the world still live on less than $1.25 a day. That's about the equivalent for the entire population of Europe living in extreme poverty. Now, it's time to build on what we learned and end poverty altogether. So the second one is end hunger, achieve food security, and improve nutrition and promote sustainable agriculture. In the past 20 years, hunger has dropped by almost half. Many countries that used to suffer from famine and hunger can now meet the nutritional needs of their most vulnerable people. It's an incredible accomplishment. Now we can go further and end hunger and malnutrition once and for all. That means doing this such as promoting sustainable agriculture and supporting small farmers. It's tall order. But for the sake of the nearly 1 out of every 9 people on earth who go to bed hungry every night, we've got to try. Imagine a world where everyone has access to sufficient and nutritional food all year round. Together, we can make that a reality by 2030. So number 3, we have ensure healthy lives and promote well-being for all at all ages. We all know how important it is to be in good health. Our health affects everything from how much we enjoy life to what we can perform. That's why there's a goal to make sure everyone has health coverage and access to safe and effective medicines and vaccines. Since 1990, we've made big strides. Preventable child deaths are down by more than half, and maternal mortality is down by almost as much. And yet, some other numbers remain tragically high, like the fact that every year 6 million children die before their 5th birthday, or that AIDS is the leading cause of death for adolescents in sub-Saharan Africa. We have the means to turn that around and make good health more than just a wish. The fourth one is ensure inclusive and equitable quality education and promote lifelong learner opportunities for all. First, the bad news on education. Poverty, armed conflict, and other emergencies keep many kids around the world out of school. In fact, in developing regions, kids from the poorest households are 4 times more likely to be out of school than those of the richest household. Now for some good news. Since 2000, there has been enormous progress on the goal to provide primary education to all children worldwide. The primary school enrollment rate in developing regions reached 91%. By measures in any school, that's a good grade. Now, let's get an even better grade for all kids and achieve the goal of universal primary and secondary education. Affordable vocational training, access to higher education, and more. The fifth one is to achieve gender equality and empower all women and girls. The great progress the world has made in becoming more prosperous and fair is worth celebrating. And yet, in just about every way, women and girls lag behind. There are still gross inequalities in work and wages. Lots of unpaid women's work, such as child care and domestic work, and discrimination in public decision making. But there are grounds for hope. More girls are in school now compared to in 2000. Most regions have reached gender parity in primary education. The percentage of women getting paid for their work is on the rise. The Sustainable Development Goals aim to build on these achievements to ensure that there is an end to discrimination against women and girls everywhere. It's a basic human right. So the sixth one is to ensure availability and sustainable management of water and sanitation for all. Everyone on earth should have access to safe and affordable drinking water. That's the goal for 2030. While many people around the world take clean drinking water and sanitation for granted, many others don't. Water scarcity affects more than 40% of people around the world, and that number is projected to go even higher as a result of climate change. If we continue the path we're on, by 2050, at least 1 in 4 people are likely to be affected by recurring water shortages. But we can take a new path, more intentional cooperation, protecting wetlands and rivers, sharing water treatment technologies, and more, that leads to accomplishing this goal. Seventh one is to ensure access to affordable, reliable, sustainable, and modern energy for all. Between 1990 and 2010, the number of people with access to electricity increased by 1.7 billion. That's progress to be proud of. And yet, as the world's population continues to rise, still more people will need cheap energy to light their homes and streets. Use phones and computers as though their everyday business. The way we get that energy is at issue. Fossil fuels and greenhouse gas emissions are making drastic changes in the climate, leading to big problems on every continent. Instead, we can become more energy efficient and invest in clean energy sources such as solar and wind. That way, we'll meet electricity needs and protect the environment. How's that for a balancing act? So the eighth one is to promote sustained, inclusive, and sustainable economic growth, full and productive employment, and decent work for all. An important part of economic growth is that people have jobs that pay enough to support themselves and their families. The good news is that the middle class is growing worldwide, almost tripling in size in developing countries in the last 25 years, to more than a third of the population. But in 2015, we also have the widening inequalities, and job growth is not keeping pace with the growing labor force. Over 200 million people don't have jobs. That's the equivalent of the entire population of Brazil. things don't have that to be that way. We can promote policies that encourage entrepreneurship and job creation. We can eradicate forced labor, slavery, and human trafficking. And in the end, we can achieve the goal of the decent work for all women and men by 2030. The ninth one is to build resilient infrastructure, promote inclusive and sustainable industrialization, and foster innovation. Technology progress help us address big global challenges such as creating jobs and becoming more energy efficient. The world is becoming even more interconnected and prosperous thanks to the internet. The more connected we are, the more we can all benefit from the wisdom and contributions of people everywhere on earth. And yet, 4 billion people have no way of getting online. The vast majority of them in developing countries. The more we invest in innovation and infrastructure, the better off we'll all be. Bridging the digital divide, promoting sustainable industries, and investing in scientific research and innovation are all important ways to facilitate sustainable development. The 10th one is to reduce inequality within and among countries. It's an old story. The rich get richer, the poor get poorer. The divide has never been starker. We can and must adopt policies that create opportunity for everyone, regardless of who they are or where they come from. Income inequality is a global problem that requires global solutions. That means improving the regulation of financial markets and institutions, sending development aid where it is most needed, and helping people migrate safely so they can pursue opportunities. We've made so much progress on poverty in the last 15 years, and now we can change the direction of the old story of inequality.
Conserve and sustainability use the ocean, seas, and marine resources for sustainable development, protect, restore and promote sustainability, manage forests, combat desertification and halt reverse land degradation and half the biodiversity loss, and promote peaceful and inclusive societies for sustainable development, provide access to justice for all to build effective, accountable, and inclusive institutions at all levels, and strengthen means of implementation and revitalize the global partnership for sustainable development. And the top 10 global issues and how they can be addressed. First is climate change. Second is pollution. Third is violence. So climate change is the global temperature rising and are estimated to increase for 2.6 degrees Celsius and 4.8 degrees Celsius by 2100. Whether this would cause more severe weather crisis and with food and resources in the spreading of disease, lobbying governments and discussing policies to reduce carbon emission and encouraging reforestation is an effective way of making progress with climate change. For pollution includes ocean leather, pesticides, and fertilizer in air, light, and noise pollution. Pollution, it could be clean water and essential for humans and animals, but more than 1 billion people don't have access to clean water, like due to the pollution from toxic substances, sewage for industrial waste. And for violence, it can be found in social, cultural, and economic aspects of the world. And all I can say, violence is whether it's conflict that has broken out in a city, hatred targeted at certain group of people, or sexual harassment occurring on the street. Violence is a preventable problem that has been issue for longer than necessary here. So here are some various forms of violence. First is physical violence. Physical violence occurs when someone uses a part of their body or an object to control a person's action. Second is sexual violence. Sexual violence occurs when a person is forced to unwillingly take part in sexual activity. Emotional violence. Emotional violence occurs when someone say or does something made a person feel guilt or feeling worthless. 11 makes cities and humans settle inclusive, made safe, resilient, and sustainable. 12 ensures sustainable consumption and production patterns. Take urgent action to combat climate change. In fact, so in line with the Nation Framework Convention to Climate Change. And that's all. Thank you.